Hey, how's it going, ninjas? You're watching Ninja Monkey Video School, video number 7. This is how to refine your edit. We're picking up from last week's video, the rough cut. So basically, we have everything in a rough cut situation. We're going to refine the edit from the rough cut into a longer version, and this will also let us refine it into the shorter version as well. Basically, I usually do two different types of edit. Um, a long version, which is usually 45 to 90 minutes, and then I do a shorter version, which is usually a highlight, usually about 2 to 5 minutes, depending on the wedding, really, and depending how long that they want their. If some brides might want a shorter highlight, things like that, just to a song and no talking, it ends up being a little bit shorter. When you put some talking, it ends up just being a little bit longer. It ends up being closer to like 4 minutes. All right, so basically, we're gonna get everything in order. We're going to add music. Once we have added the music, we're going to make the edits perfect and make sure that they match the music. We're going to bring in cool, real audio moments that happen in the day. So basically, like the real audio moments, what they are is anything that happens during the day, in between the ceremony and the music. Anything that someone says that's cool that has to do with the wedding, maybe like, oh, I can't wait, or I'm so excited, and really anything that stands out when you're going through all the footage in the earlier parts of this editing process, when you're preparing all of your footage, when you're organizing everything. You're going to be basically looking for these moments. Usually I'll mark these moments a different color. I usually mark them mango color, usually like that, around that color, or fire color. Basically, I like that. I consider that fire. I mean, I'm from that generation. That means it's very good, basically. And also, I'm going to go over how to do transitions between moments. So these transitions will basically occur between different parts of the day. So between the pre-ceremony and maybe the first look, or the first look and the ceremony, any big parts of the day, I usually like to put transitions between them to kind of make it obvious that now we're going into a different part of the day. Sometimes I will switch up later parts of the day with earlier parts of the day, which I'm going to show you. Maybe parts of the day from the photo shoot during the cocktail hour, or different, or maybe there was a photo shoot after the first look. I'll take those parts with the bride and groom together, and I put a lot of those in the beginning, because I think that looks pretty cool to kind of mix that in, show them together, not as much as apart. And then we're going to be adding some filmic effects to make everything look cool and unique. I like to add a lot of film burns and things like that to make it just look, make it stand out. And I'm going to show you kind of what goes into that and how to make it look very good and not put too much into it where it looks fake or weird or it stands out too much. It just should kind of just blend in. Any effects that you're doing to a wedding film should just kind of blend in. When they're watching this in 30 years, hopefully, it doesn't look old, like, oh, they used too many of those old effects, I can't believe it, type of thing. That's really what you're trying to avoid. So let's get into Final Cut and we'll kind of get started. Alright, so this is the sequence that we have from last week's video, from the rough cut. It's basically the same sequence that we made. I've just pretty much duplicated it and moved it into this edit. I've just duplicated it and named it a new name, like you can see here. Instead of 6, it's 7. This is a new class. Usually, anytime I'm doing new major changes, I do like to duplicate the file. If I am just working in one edit, basically anytime I'm doing another edit session or another version, like you could see here, when I made their full wedding film the first time, this was the first time, this was probably made in about 1 day, 2 days of work. Might be spread out a little bit more when I look at it again. But basically, I'll group this into one editing version, and then when they have notes and things like that that I change to bring it drastically from this first version, I'll put V2 at the end. That's kind of the way that I like to do it. I'll put an underscore and V2 at the end, like you can see here. That's how I do it for the highlight as well. When they had notes on the highlight, I changed it to V2. So that's what I'm kind of doing here. This is number 7, so we've duplicated it. Anytime you're making changes, like I said, you should duplicate it, save your changes. A lot of times clients might say, hey, can I go back to how I had it in the very beginning and things like that. You don't want to have not saved that edit. So it's very much an amateur mistake. You want to have everything saved from previous versions. A lot of times I'll be working on a documentary for a year and they might go, hey, remember how we had it in October of last year? Can you bring up that version and things like that? You got to have it ready or it's really not going to work. And people will ask for this type of thing. Okay. So now the first thing that I'll kind of do once I'm starting to move into the fine cut edit, you can see here, I usually would have more clips here in the beginning. I'm kind of doing a shortened version just for this video class, just to kind of show you how everything would work. Um, so now, what the first thing I'll probably do is put in the music. So the music that we have here is basically music that I took off of YouTube. YouTube has a pretty cool selection of free music that they allow you to use. You could look up, I basically just looked up romantic and found one that I liked. But you could basically find music from all types of music and just use it for free. And this is allowed to be used on YouTube for free. It's a cool feature that I didn't know about till very recently. Um, a lot of times I'll have, because these videos are private, I'll use just songs that they like because it's only being shared privately for home use, home exhibition type thing for their friends and family. And it's not really being broadcast or anything like that. So I'll put in songs that they like. But whenever I'm using it on YouTube or for advertising or for different things like that, where it is going to become public, I do have to use songs that are copyright free, and that is okay, that's legal to do. We don't want to be infringing on anybody's copyright or anything like that. So now I'll pop that in. This music is just playing. I'll kind of, the first thing that I like to do is I like to put the graphic in the beginning that I'm going to use. So usually the graphic would come in right about there. So I have a graphics folder that I'll keep all of my graphics in here, and I have it subcategorized into titles, film burns, leaks, anything that's red, wipes, things like that. So I have everything just ready to go. And the more organized, the better. If you can be just completely organized, have everything in separate folders, you're just going to be that much faster. So this is the logo that I use. This is my Ninja Monkey logo. So I'll just pop it up in the beginning. It'll come in right there. Probably right when that you hear the music start is what I'm aiming for. Right there. So I'll just pop it in right there, and it'll go away. And now I like to make this a little bit smaller. I think it's a little bit too big, so I usually make it smaller. You know, you can go right in here to the right in the inspector. That's the opacity actually that I'm adjusting. I don't want to adjust opacity. I want to adjust scale of all, and I just usually like to put it to around 50 or 60. We'll put it for 50 right now. I think it looks a little bit too big the way it was, but I have a higher resolution, so it looks better if you just lower the resolution like that. Make it smaller in post, so I'm keeping a little bit more of keeping a little bit more resolution. What you're seeing me doing here, basically I'll find the part where I like the first clip to come in, which would be right about here. You could hear the music. Let's hear it. Right there. So I'll just find the right frame. I'll select on the right there. We can mark it as well if things get moved around. It's always nice to have that marked. You select on the clip and press M to mark any situation, any location. And then basically I'll select on the timeline and we'll press Option, right edge, right bracket, and just press those together, Option, right bracket, and it'll just close it down right there. It'll just close that gap down so that we have everything ready to go. These are nice little things to have when you're doing the fine cut, nice little tricks to just make everything, edit everything much faster and the way that you want it. These are the type of things that are going to save you a lot of time. Instead of having to all day go and drag this, and imagine the time that you're wasting all day. I'm just going to go Option and I'm going fast. I'm not going to waste any time. So, and then I want to do a transition here. I'm just going to have a simple fade. Command T would give me a fade in. And then you see the music has another beat right here. So I'll just do an Option, right edge again, bring that in, and we'll just close down to the next clip. These clips have audio, like you can hear, so I don't want to have any of that audio. I'll just go into the audio setting here in the inspector. I always have the inspector usually open when I'm working. Usually I'll close down the browser, the right end here. The left end here on the right, top right. There's a window. These three buttons basically allow you to close the three windows that are open, the inspector, the viewer, and the timeline. You have to have the browser open to close the timeline. So these are nice little tricks when you're editing. Usually I don't have to have the browser open when I'm doing this. And when I'm doing this, we want to take off the audio, like I said, here in the inspector. So this is the next shot. And sometimes you could just edit this right in real time. You could just option right bracket, and then just close this gap. These are all different shots. That's why we have gaps. So we know these are things that we want to bring in next. This is the organization that we did in the rough cut. In the rough cut, we want to get everything pretty much in order. We don't want everything to be any way out of order. That's very important. That it's in order roughly already in the rough cut, so that you can move that much faster in the fine cut. Now right here, what I could see before these shots, I want to have a couple shots of the bride and groom. That's something that I didn't include here in the rough cut that we did last week, but it's definitely something I would have right here. After these couple of shots, I showed the location, I showed the dress, and I want to show the bride and groom together. So I'll go right here to my organized clips folder, and we'll just go to, I think they were in the cocktail hour where they were together. In the cocktail hour, there was a photo shoot. I'll change my view right here to toggle clip display, so I see everything in the thumbnail. I already have everything selected, already in and out. I already have in and out points on everything. So basically, I can just kind of find a spot that I like. In the beginning, I like to use some of my best stuff, because I figure they might now watch the end if the beginning is not good enough. You want to make sure the beginning of your video is very good, because most people, if the beginning is not good, they're going to stop watching the video. So you have to make sure that you have some of your best stuff is in the beginning. And I think this shot definitely is one of the best shots we had today. There's also some nice shots here, but in this slow motion, just them, also this right here, this part right here, is pretty nice. I'll put it in and out. Him just going right next to her right like that. It's pretty nice. So I'm just going to insert that right there. It's pressing W to just insert that right in. This doesn't have any sound, so you really don't have to take off the sound. And we'll just kind of keep going to the music. And something you can do also, something I do sometimes to save myself a little bit of time, is go ahead of time and put your markers on your music ahead of time. So where you would want to have the edits. Right here's an edit point, right here's an edit point. So I'm just placing, right here's an edit point, boom, 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 boom. So these are already ready to go. I have all these points right here. So when I want to just kind of slide everything, get everything in perfectly, I could just go right here. So I have this shot of them together, shot of the shoes. I can go right here to this marker and just option right edge, and bam. Go to the next one, option right edge, bam. And you don't have to wait. The cool thing about Final Cut is that you don't have to wait for you could have the timeline moving and be doing edits while you haven't even pressed on the timeline. It's just hovering with your mouse right now. This is an option that you could have here in the timeline. Video skimming. Basically, that's what this is. This is video and audio skimming. Basically, I like to have the video skimming so that this is happening. This is definitely, I think, like a cool, see now it's not happening. I think that it's a cool function that Final Cut has, and I always have it on so that I can just move very quickly. I don't have to be clicking. I could just go right here. These are where I want my edits, and I'll just make sure that my edits are right where I want them to be, right there. Bam. And to do a clip that's on top, like, so let's say if I have a clip on top like you're seeing right here, you would just have to select the clip. It's always defaulted to do all your commands to the timeline itself. So this first track is what track, as it's known in other editing programs. In Final Cut, it's just the timeline, and anything above is just connected to the timeline. These are just connected clips. But basically, you would have to select the clip before I can do an alteration to it. If I wanted to cut it shorter, just select it or make it go longer. Now, when you go past, it won't let you go longer. That's something that, just so you know, Final Cut doesn't let you do that. I wanted to show you that. It only works that way if there's only one clip, but it really doesn't work that way to make it go longer. It's more to go shorter in the beginning and the end to cut them down. If you want them to go longer, usually you have to drag them, or you can select on the edit point that you're on. You see how right here you can see the beginning and the end. It'll make a different, we'll go in a little bit closer. I mean, it really doesn't let you see it any closer, but in the beginning and the end, so this is the end of the clip before or the beginning of the next clip. So this lets me know which edit point I'm on. So right here, I would be on the end of that clip, and you could just move it in frame by frame by pressing um, your. I guess it would be your arrow keys is what I call them, but you would basically it'd be your period and your comma signs. Comma would make it go in, period would make it go out. This is nice if you would just want to get a frame by frame perfect for your fine cut. If this is just, you see that this is just a little bit too soon when you're listening to it, it's a little bit too soon, let's say. So I would go on this beginning and move it back a little bit. And you can kind of mess with that when you're doing your edit. You mess with this. This is something that I like to use a lot. This is going frame by frame. A cool trick is if you press shift, it'll go, I believe it's 5 frames or 10 frames. So let's see, 8 to 20, so 8 to 18, it's 10 frames. When you press shift, it goes 10 frames. I think command, no, command doesn't do anything. Sorry about that. We'll go back to full screen mode. So basically, if you're pressing comma and period, 1 frame either way, left and right, comma is left, period is right. If you want to add 10 frames either way, press shift and you can go 10 frames. These are nice tricks that I like to do. Shift can get me there a little bit faster, and then I'll just kind of adjust it. So now if I want to go back, I can kind of adjust it. So this is a nice little trick. Definitely when you're doing a fine cut edit that you want to be able to have in your pocket. And now, like I showed you, this clip, we call it one of our fire clips, one of our very good clips. So I actually have it labeled as fire, as you can see here, and we'll just name it orange. We know that that's one of our very good clips. And just watch it. We know we're going to edit in right there. You can do it in real time. So I'm just pressing option and right bracket. And I'm just editing everything in real time. That's one of the cool things about Final Cut. You can edit right in real time, and then you can just cut between them. So now I have a drone shot after the bride. Obviously, we're not going to use that where he's sneezing, right? So we'll cut that out. And that's kind of how that would work. So now I have all these clips cut down to pretty much the size that I'd kind of want them, the length that I'd want them, almost in the place that I'd want them. Let's say there's some places that are a little bit off, that I see that I have a spot that I want like a little bit later. That's actually kind of cool that it zooms in like that, and it just adding a little bit of style. But you see here, we don't want to have her mouth open. She's probably gonna complain about that. So I'll press T, and T is basically our trim, but it allows us to roll everything over. We can see the beginning frame and the end frame on the right. So the beginning frame is on the left, the end frame is on the right. So we're just gonna kind of slide it over to where we're just getting some of the cool part with after she opens her mouth, right about there. And right there you can hear them talking. Obviously I'm going to get rid of that. We'll get rid of all that talking right here. And you can see I have it all labeled by color. So what I usually like to do is if they're not talking, I'll change the color. I'll turn off the audio and I'll have everything labeled by color because I want to know what exactly it is. I like to have basically the details are colored blue, and I know that this color of green is for the bride shots, this color of green is for the groom shots. I'm going to show you right here one of my longer edits, basically the edit that we're working on when it's finished. This is a full wedding film. We're just going to double click on that. This is the first version of it. I'm just going to shift Z to zoom out. We're going to go to the beginning and just command plus to just kind of go in, zoom in. So you can see how my edits is set up. This is how it'll look at the end. I have all my effects here. You could see all the different colors so that I know that this is bride stuff. This is more bride details. This is them together. Anything orange is them together. So I know this is them together. This is them together. This is them together. I can just kind of mess with those shots. Let's say if I want to move those to a different spot, I can move them if I need to. I'm not going to mess with this edit too much because this is a production edit. I just wanted to show you how it would look. Something I do add, we'll go back to our edits. We can just go back to the previous timeline right here on the arrows, right here in the middle. We can go in between the timelines. There is a shortcut for this, but usually I just like to press the arrows at the end of the day. But the shortcut is left bracket and right bracket with command, I believe. Yeah. If you want to go back just with the left bracket, right bracket command. So the one before, left bracket command. If I want to go back to the one after, right bracket command. So we'll just do that just to show you that. A lot of times I'll just press the arrow. Depends how you like to work. Now the next thing I want to show you is one of these real moments that I've been talking about. One of these moments where I've taken audio and basically I'm using the audio from the day during the wedding film. We'll take one of them right here. You can kind of hear them. You can kind of hear them talking in the background. I'll play it again. You can hear them. This is just some background sound. So I'll include this. I like to have just the ambiance to feel the day again. I'm gonna turn off the here. It kind of goes down so you could hear them a little better. See, they had trouble with the tie. I thought that was a cool moment. They were having trouble with the tie. I wanted to leave that in. So I thought that was pretty cool. So I always, anything you hear that's funny, they were having trouble with the tie. The guy said something funny. I want to leave that in their wedding. The bride didn't see that. The groom doesn't see them all together. So a lot of times they want to see what it was like for the other person on their wedding day. We'll command left bracket to go to the other timeline that we're working on. And in here, the next thing that I want to show you is how to add an effect. So you could see basically this one has no effects. You could see all these little effects that I've added. These are film burn effects. You can see it play. It's taking a second to just load. A lot of times this is going to play a lot better if I just have it in proxy mode. So the next thing I'm going to show you is how to add effects. So you can see here we don't have any effects. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to add effects. We'll go back to the previous timeline. You can see here I have a bunch of effects. These are film burn effects that I like to use. We'll go back to the other timeline. I'm going to show you how that's done. So basically right here, this has no effects on it. The effects are pretty easy to do. You just add them right on top. I usually like to go a few frames before one of these edit points. So you can just go between the edit points by up and down arrows. So we'll go to this edit point right here. Want to place one right there. So I'll go a few frames before it, just so that's the where I want to have it. Usually these effects I don't like to have more than about 6 frames. 3 frames before, 3 frames after, maybe just 2 frames after, 2 frames before. Very short. They shouldn't be too long. The longer you make them, the more it becomes like an effect and becomes very fake. So we'll go right here to our graphics folder. And I have film burns right here. I'm going to show you how to do a film burn. We'll change our toggle our display right here. So we'll pick one that I usually like to look. This is kind of just like a light leak. It looks like light leaking from the film plane on a film camera. So basically it wasn't sealed up correctly. Usually on a film camera, you have to put tape on all of the edges or seals, at least the cheaper film cameras, the ones that I used in film school at least, so you don't get these type of leaks. So we're going to select the clip. We already have the in and out points, and we're going to connect it. This isn't going to be a W edit. This is going to be a Q edit. We're connecting it to the top of our timeline. So press Q. And now it's a little bit too long, so we'll make those 3 frames like we talked about. Select the clip, option right bracket to make it shorter. Now you can see the clip, it basically looks weird, right? Like you're seeing all the black. It doesn't look like the effect that basically we're going for, the effect I had shown you. Now to make that effect work, you have to go into compositing. right here in the inspectors, make sure your inspector's open. You'll go into the compositing area right here in video. The very top is compositing, and right where it says normal. And there's a bunch of options here. You can mess around with these options. They all do different things. The one that we're going to be using right now is screen. So that gets rid of all of the black and just leaves everything else but black. So we've pressed screen. We could watch it, and it kind of looks like more like what we're looking for. Kind of like if the film just kind of leaked a little bit. Maybe that's a little bit too short. I'll leave it a little longer at the end. The way that I did that is basically selecting the end of the clip. You could have something else selected, but make sure you have the end of the clip. So where you have this yellow icon, it's basically pointing in. You have that very end of the clip selected, and you're just going to press in your arrow keys, the comma and the period symbol, left and right. So you could just adjust them frame by frame. And again, if you press shift, you can adjust them 10 frames at a time. So we'll just adjust it frame by frame. That looks better, and it looks cool if you have it end right on the music too. It looks like in my opinion, makes it just adds a little bit of something to it. It just makes it look a little cooler. So I would just go, you don't want to add too many. Like you could see in my timeline, I don't have that many of them throughout this whole 90-minute. In the beginning, I do add a couple, but then I won't go for a little bit. I'll add a few. I mean, a lot of times they like this, so you want to add a few, one after the other. So probably coming in and out of here, I would add another one. So we'll just select right here. I usually like the lighter ones, the ones with not too much color, but this one looks kind of cool, the red one. We'll select that right here, and we're going to connect that to our timeline queue. We'll zoom in to be able to look at it, Command plus minus, and we're going to just shift this, nudge it over with our comma and plus, comma and period. So now we have to put our compositing mode back to screen. Every time you have to do it, you have to put screen. Take a look at that. Looks cool. Maybe a little too long in the beginning. And that's kind of the secret of it, not too long. And just kind of go through. You would keep adding them. And after the ceremony would come, so after you have all these pre-ceremony shots, you would have to transition into the ceremony. Usually I would just have some kind of establishing shot, have all the detail shots of the ceremony right here, so we could just take a look. We have our ceremony folder right here in organized clips. I have my details of my ceremony, so we'll just kind of pop these in. We could select all of them at the same time and just kind of pop them in, insert them right in. They're already all edited, ready to go. At least in and outs are already placed for them. So now we can place our in and outs. We know we're not going to want any audio here, so we'll just select all of them. I don't want any audio from they're usually playing music or something, I believe, so I don't want any audio. So I'm going to the audio portion of the inspector, unchecking all the audio clips. And we'll just go through, go to the music. Here, this is obviously a part that I want to get rid of, so we'll just go right to the part that we want right there. Keep playing. And this is just option in the bracket, and I'm going to the music. So okay, we've got those rough, kind of edited. I kind of don't like how this is going down, and then this is going down as well. And I think it's a little bit too early as well. We already have our edit time, so we'll press T and just kind of start it a little bit later. And it's a little bit too long probably, so we'll shift. So we don't mess around with our other edits, we'll just shift. If you're on T, you can mess around with the edit points. So now you can select the middle edit and select both and make them go in and out. I'm pressing comma and period to go in and out. This is one after I've pressed T. When I've pressed A, you can't do that. It doesn't let me select the middle anymore. Now when I press T, it does let me select the middle. And I could just nudge it right and left. This is a nice tactic when I know that this clip is just a little too long. And I don't want to mess anything. The whole point of this is that you're not messing up anything after. When you have these edits already ready in place, I just want to mess around with this edit. I don't want to mess around with any of the other edits after. Their timing is good. If you mess around with them, the timing to the music will go off as well. So what I didn't like was how this was coming up, and basically I want to just switch position. So I'll go back to A, select the whole clip, and move it over to after. So I want to have this there going down and now up. This is coming. This is kind of the wrong timing. So I'll just kind of move it like that, so that I get the end of it right there. With after pressing T, it allows me to switch that. It's kind of a little too late too. So I kind of want it to be right there where it goes into focus. So instead we'll go to the match focus. Follow focus. Right here, we'll go into focus. That doesn't look very good. So what we'll do is we're just going to shorten this right where it's in focus. So we have less of this. And a lot of times what I like to do to kind of keep things interesting as well, because this kind of looks weird, is kind of alternate the shots. So put shots in between the people. Kind of, it'll kind of make everything seem a little bit more dynamic. Right there would be a new edit. If you just kind of stay to the same type of shots, it's gonna get kind of a little bit boring. When you kind of move the shots like I just did, instead of having all of the establishing shots all in a line and then all of the shots of the people, puts establishing shots inside of where the people are. It just makes it that much more interesting. It takes it from being a rough cut to a fine cut now, and now it just looks that much more interesting. It's brought it up to another level, to a professional level. So now we're kind of good. I like how this all looks. We have the groom right at the end, and we're gonna kind of fade out from him. And I want the ceremony to fade in right about there. So we have the ceremony fading in. So we could select our timeline. We press Option right edge to just kind of make it go in and fade in right there. And we want our music to end right about here too. So we'll select. You have to select the music so it knows you want to make the music. You're messing with the music. And Option right edge, right bracket is the key. It's basically the key next to P. If you're wondering what keys I'm talking about, they're the keys next to P. Left bracket, right bracket. They control the left and right edges of your editing. And right here, you could just have it fade out. If you select this little symbol right here, it'll say fade out once you have it held on there for a while. Sometimes it won't do it, but sometimes it will. Right there, fade audio out. And then you'll just kind of have the audio fade out. Sometimes I like the audio to fade out over a pretty long time, at least in the beginning of a ceremony. So I'll kind of just make it very long, and we'll see how that sounds. And we need to make sure the audio fades in as well. You always want to have audio fade ins, audio fade outs. You don't want to have any audio. You don't want to have any audio coming in abruptly. I want the audio to just drag a little bit longer. I think it'll sound a little bit better, especially when there's no talking. You can do that. And here you can see the music didn't come in. The music doesn't come in until later. So it's okay to do that. And just have it fade out. Play it again. Alright, so yeah, you can see that sounds a lot better. So now we're into the ceremony. And after the ceremony, you would put in all of your cocktail hour shots. You could take a look at that here in my fully edited version. Basically, I have all of the shots that were in the cocktail hour, which are usually the DJI shots, the drone shots, and them together. Just to show the moment and then them together. And then I would show the establishing of the reception location starting towards the end of these shots. Obviously, I don't have them all in the same together. This is playing like that because I don't have my proxy mode set on. Usually when I add all of these effects with my Mac, I have to have the proxy mode on. So right now it's going to play a little bit weird, but you can kind of get an idea of what's happening. So that gives you a good idea how everything would work. And I would end with a shot from the reception, fade out, and then into all the reception events. And then I'll kind of have dancing cut in between, like how I showed you in the rough cut. And I've just cut that all down. I'm going to show you kind of how that looks in here. So in my reception, I kind of have dancing in between all of the talking and all of the formal events. So just to kind of keep it interesting, um, this is them. This is the speeches. After the speeches, I have some dancing, and then it goes back to another formal event. This was a performance given by one of one of the family members of the bride, I think. And I have these two cameras. This is all by myself, the two cameras, but I've synced them both together and I've edited between them. And this is all cleaned up in here at the end, just to give you a good idea. And basically, I have this all towards the end, and this is how I end it. You have to be very careful towards the end to basically, when you're adding effects to the top. I'm going to show you more about these color correction effects that I've added. Basically, you can see when I disable them by pressing V, this is how it would look without the color that I've added. And I've just added this kind of a cinematic look to it. It has some whites and the blacks. It just kind of brings in, it's my wedding look. I definitely like this look right now for weddings. I usually change kind of the colors of it, but I like this general look for weddings right now. It's a very dreamy look, you would say. But I'll show you that. Next week, we're going to go over those type of things. We're going to go over how to add polish, how to do the color correction to everything, how basically to bring it to towards a little bit farther into the final stages of the wedding edit, basically closer to what you're actually going to be delivering to the clients. Um, and I think this pretty much gives you a good idea of how to get it into the fine cut version where you're almost there, and then we're gonna add the final polish that will get us closer to the pick lock next week. If you have any questions, please just leave them in the comments. I'm always here for anybody. And also, please remember to subscribe and share. It always helps me. The more people that see this, the better. I always think the more people that know how to edit in the right way, the better. So thank you so much for watching. Have a great week. Bye.